Welcome, dear listeners, to the shadowy corridors of history and haunting, where the line between the living and the dead blurs into the mist. Tonight, we embark on a journey to a place where the echoes of the past are not just memories, but living specters that walk the night. Nestled in the rugged landscapes of Northumberland, England, lies Chillingham Castle, a fortress as infamous for its storied past as it is for its residents not of this world. This castle, with its ancient stones and whispered secrets, is said to be Britain's most haunted, a claim that is not lightly made nor easily dismissed. Its halls and rooms are inhabited not just by the tales of those who lived and died within its walls, but by the spirits themselves, including the eerie presence known as the Blue Boy, whose cries and spectral glow cast a chilling blue light into the darkest corners of the night. As the dusk falls and the shadows lengthen, join us as we delve into the heart of Chillingham Castle. Together, we will uncover the layers of history, betrayal, and tragedy that have earned this place its ghostly reputation. But beware, dear listeners, for in seeking to understand the mysteries of the castle, we might just find ourselves confronting the mysteries of the beyond. Prepare yourself for an exploration of the unknown, where the tales of the dead are as alive as you and me. This is not just a story. It's an invitation to the other side, where the past never rests in peace. Welcome to Chillingham Castle. In the heart of Northumberland, where ancient landscapes whisper tales of yore, stands the imposing silhouette of Chillingham Castle, shrouded in the mist of its notorious legacy. It was here, on a day where the sun seemed hesitant to pierce the veil of fog, that Alex, a historian with a penchant for the paranormal, arrived. His quest to delve into the castle's haunted past, a narrative woven through centuries of sightings, stories, and spirits that refuse to be forgotten. As Alex's car wound its way through the dense forests bordering the castle, the first glimpse of its towering walls sent a shiver down his spine, not just from the cold, but from the palpable sense of history that seemed to bleed from the stones themselves. Chillingham Castle, with its battlements reaching towards a heavy, brooding sky, stood as a monument not just to the past, but to the countless souls who had once called it home, some of whom, it was rumored, had never left. Stepping out of the car, Alex was immediately enveloped in an atmosphere thick with an eerie stillness. The air felt charged, as if electric with the anticipation of untold stories yearning to break free from the shackles of time. The castle's grandeur was undeniable, with its medieval architecture commanding respect. Yet it was the unsettling quiet that surrounded it which captured Alex's immediate attention. It was as if the castle itself was holding its breath, waiting. As he approached the massive oak doors, The echo of his footsteps on a cobblestone pathway seemed to stir whispers from the shadows. The whispers were unintelligible, yet unmistakably there, fretting through the air with a chill that wasn't entirely born of the wind. It was a welcome, if not a warning, from the inhabitants unseen. Inside, the castle unfolded like a labyrinth of history. Each room and corridor told a story, etched into the wood and stone, a tapestry of lives lived and lost. The air inside was cool and musty, filled with the scent of old earth and the faint, almost imperceptible aroma of lavender and smoke, remnants of a time long past. The grandeur of the castle was breathtaking, with its ornate tapestries, imposing fireplaces, and centuries-old furniture. Yet, beneath the surface of this opulence lay an undercurrent of something else, something more sinister. As Alex ventured deeper, the light from the windows grew scarce, and the castle's eerie atmosphere intensified. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, dancing just out of the corner of his eye, and the silence was so profound that it felt almost like a physical presence, pressing in around him. It was in these moments of solitude that Alex could feel the weight of the castle's history bearing down upon him, a history replete with tales of tragedy, betrayal, and the supernatural. The legend of the Blue Boy was just one of many that had drawn Alex to Chillingham Castle, a spectre said to haunt the very halls he now walked. But, as the day waned, and the light dimmed, what had started as an academic pursuit began to feel like something much more personal. Alex realized he was no longer just a historian seeking to uncover the past. He had become a part of the castle's story, a living thread woven into the fabric of its haunted legacy. And so, our story begins, with Alex standing at the threshold of discovery and darkness. What secrets will the castle reveal? And at what cost? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. Chillingham Castle is not a place that gives up its ghosts lightly. Under the dim light of flickering candles, the castle's caretaker, a weathered man named Thomas, whose features were as carved and rugged as the castle walls themselves, began to weave the tapestry of tales that cloaked Chillingham Castle in its infamous shroud of mystery. As Alex listened, the boundaries between the past and the present seemed to blur, with each story breathing life into the shadows that danced just beyond the reach of the light. Thomas spoke of the Blue Boy, a spirit whose heart-wrenching wails were said to echo through the castle at the stroke of midnight, emanating from within the very walls of the Pink Room. He was a young lad, Thomas explained, his voice dropping to a hush, hidden in the walls by those who wished to conceal his existence. His bones, they say, were found centuries later, wrapped in a blue fabric, alongside remnants of his tragic fate. The air grew colder as he spoke, as if the castle itself mourned the tale. But the blue boy was not alone in his eternal residence. There were others, Thomas confessed, each bound to the castle by their own stories of despair and demise. There was the lady in white, who roamed the chapel in eternal mourning for her lost love, her presence marked by a sudden drop in temperature and the faint scent of roses. And then there were the soldiers, remnants of a brutal past, whose march could still be heard on stormy nights, their ghostly footsteps a chilling reminder of the castle's bloody history. As Alex absorbed these tales, the atmosphere of the castle seemed to shift. The air felt denser, charged with an unseen energy, and the faint whispers that had greeted his arrival now grew in intensity, as though the spirits themselves were drawn to the recounting of their own tragedies. Moving through the corridors with Thomas, Alex experienced sudden cold spots, an inexplicable chill that seemed to seep into his very bones, leaving him with a sense of unease that was hard to shake. The whispers, Thomas explained, were the voices of the past, unable to find peace. They were most often heard in the dead of night, when the barrier between worlds grew thin, and the living and the dead reached out to one another in a silent exchange of sorrow and longing. "It's as if the castle breathes," Thomas murmured, inhaling the present and exhaling the past in a perpetual cycle of life and death. As they continued their tour, the light from Thomas's lantern cast long shadows against the walls, shadows that seemed to move with a mind of their own. In one chilling moment, a shadow appeared to detach itself from the wall, stretching towards Alex with an almost palpable sense of desperation before dissipating into the ether. Alex's heart raced, his mind torn between the rational explanations of science and the undeniable evidence of the supernatural that enveloped him. The tour concluded in a grand hall, a room that, despite its beauty, could not escape the pervasive sense of melancholy that permeated the castle. As Thomas departed, leaving Alex alone with his thoughts, the historian could not shake the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes fixed upon him from the shadows. That night, as Alex lay in bed, the castle's history replayed in his mind, a carousel of ghosts and tragedies that refused to be silenced. And then, just as sleep began to claim him, a distant sound broke the silence, the heart-wrenching wail of a child, a cry that pierced the night and confirmed that Chillingham Castle was indeed a place where the past was anything but dead. In the heart of the night, when the castle's ancient stones seemed to whisper secrets to the darkness, Alex found himself caught between the realms of sleep and wakefulness. It was in this twilight of consciousness that the fabric of reality began to thin, and a past dared to step through into the present. The air in his room grew inexplicably cold, a chill that seemed to seep into his very soul, stirring him from his uneasy slumber. As he lay there, eyes straining in the darkness, trying to discern the shapes in the shadows, a sudden movement caught his attention. At the foot of his bed, where moments ago there had been nothing but empty space, there now appeared a figure bathed in an ethereal blue light. It was a young boy, his features blurred, as if seen through a veil of water. Yet his presence was unmistakable. The blue glow that surrounded him cast a surreal luminescence on the walls, painting the room in shades of midnight and sorrow. Frozen in disbelief, Alex watched as the figure stood silently, its gaze fixed upon him with an intensity that was almost palpable. There was a depth to the boy's eyes, a profound sadness that spoke of a life cut tragically short, and a spirit tethered to the world of the living by chains of unresolved anguish. For a fleeting moment, the barriers of time and existence seemed to collapse, and Alex felt a connection to the boy, a pull towards his story that was as undeniable as it was terrifying. And then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, the figure vanished, the light extinguished as if swallowed by the night itself. Alex was left in darkness, his heart racing, his mind grappling with what he had just witnessed. Had the blue boy of the castle's tales truly made himself known, reaching across the centuries to make his presence felt? Or had the weight of the castle's history, its stories and tragedies, woven themselves into Alex's mind, conjuring phantoms from the depths of his own imagination? The room felt oppressive in the aftermath, the silence no longer a peaceful quiet, but a heavy, expectant pause, as if the castle itself held its breath, waiting for what was to come. Alex knew then that his journey into the castle's haunted past was not just a scholarly pursuit, but a personal odyssey into the unknown, a path that would lead him through the shadowed corridors of history and into the very heart of the supernatural. As dawn broke, casting a pale light through the windows, the night starers seemed to retreat into the corners and crevices of the room. But the memory of the blue boy's visitation lingered, a ghostly imprint on Alex's mind that would not fade with the coming of the day. It was a harbinger of the hauntings to come, a sign that the spirits of Chillingham Castle were restless, and their stories, long silenced, demanded to be heard. With the new day came a resolve. Alex knew that he could not turn back, could not unsee what had been revealed to him in the depths of the night. The castle's secrets beckoned, and he would follow, wherever they might lead, into the darkness and beyond. The journey had only just begun, and the shadows of Chillingham Castle held more mysteries than Alex could have ever imagined. As dawn's light filtered through the heavy curtains of Chillingham Castle, Alex's resolve solidified like the ancient stones that surrounded him. The night's encounter with the spectral blue boy had ignited a fervent need to unravel the mysteries that lay hidden within the castle's storied past. Thus, with the first rays of sunlight casting shadows across the centuries-old floors, Alex ventured into the heart of the castle, its archives. The archives were a treasure trove of history, a labyrinth of documents, letters, and diaries that whispered secrets of a bygone era. Dust danced in the beams of light that pierced the gloom, each mode a silent witness to the lives and deaths that had unfolded within the castle walls. As Alex delved into the parchment pages, the tales of the Blue Boy and other spectral residents of the castle began to take shape, each story a thread in the complex tapestry of Chillingham's haunted legacy. The Blue Boy, as the legend was chronicled, was believed to be the spirit of a young boy entombed within the very walls of the castle. Documents hinted at a dark tale of inheritance, betrayal, and murder, with the boy hidden away and left to meet his tragic end, sealed within a chamber as cold and silent as the grave itself. His spectral form, cloaked in an ethereal blue light, was said to wander the castle, a soul in eternal search for release from his earthly prison. But the Blue Boy was not alone in his unrest. The archives revealed other stories, each more chilling than the last. There was the tale of Lady Mary, a noble woman who roamed the castle's chapel, her heart-broken sobs a lament for her executed husband, falsely accused of treason. Her presence was often marked by the scent of roses, a ghostly perfume that wafted through the air in her wake. Another account spoke of the torturer, a sadistic executioner from the castle's days as a stronghold during the border wars. It was said his malevolent spirit lingered in the dungeons, delighting in the terror of the living, his laughter echoing in the dark, a macabre reminder of the cruelty that humans are capable of inflicting upon one another. As Alex pieced together these tales, a picture began to emerge of a castle steeped in tragedy and bloodshed. The archives themselves seemed to pulsate with the energy of the stories they contained, the air heavy with the weight of untold sorrow. It was as if the very walls of the room were saturated with the essence of those who had once lived and died within them, their voices clamoring to be heard from beyond the veil. With each page turned, Alex felt himself drawn deeper into the web of the castle's past, a past that refused to rest quietly. The whispers that had greeted his arrival now seemed to grow in urgency, as though the spirits sensed his pursuit of their stories and sought to communicate, to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. But as the shadows lengthened and the light dimmed, Alex realized that delving into the castle's secrets was not without its risks. There was a palpable sense of being watched, of unseen eyes following his every move, a reminder that he was not alone in his quest for the truth. The air grew cold, and for a moment, Alex could swear he heard the faint sound of laughter, as cold and cruel as the stone walls that echoed it. Undeterred, Alex pressed on, determined to uncover the truths that lay buried in the archives. For in the heart of Chillingham Castle, history was alive, breathing through the stories of those who had once walked its halls. And Alex knew that to truly understand the hauntings that plagued the castle, he must first come to know the souls who haunted it, their stories a map to navigating the shadowy realms between life and death. In the deep, velvety cloak of night that draped itself over Chillingham Castle, Alex found himself ensnared in a realm where the boundaries between the past and the present, the living and the dead, were as insubstantial as the mist that rose from the ground. The days spent poring over the archive's ancient texts had stirred something within the castle, a whisper of consciousness from those who had never truly left. Night after night, as the castle sank into silence, Alex lay in the embrace of darkness, his mind teeming with the stories of those who wandered its halls in life and in death. But it was not in silence that these hours passed. Instead, they were filled with the visits of the castle's spectral residents, each apparition bringing with it a piece of the puzzle that was Chillingham's haunted legacy. The Blue Boy was the first to return, his visits becoming more frequent, as if drawn by Alex's quest to unearth the truth. He appeared always in the same way, a silhouette bathed in a melancholic blue glow, his presence accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature that left the breath visible in the air. Though he never spoke, his eyes conveyed a depth of sadness and longing, a plea for understanding that transcended the barrier of death. But the Blue Boy was not alone in his nocturnal wanderings. One night, as a storm raged outside, the wind howling like the cries of the damned, Alex was visited by the figure of a woman dressed in the remnants of what once might have been a wedding gown. Her face, pale and distorted by grief, was marred by tears that seemed to etch themselves into her very being. She was the Lady in White, her sorrow a tangible force that filled the room, her mournful sobs echoing in the dark, a lament for love and life lost. Another night brought the shadow of a man, his features obscured by the darkness, but his presence marked by the unmistakable clink of chains, and the heavy, labored breaths of one who had known nothing but suffering. This spirit, Alex surmised, was the remnants of a prisoner, a soul shackled not only in life, but in death, trapped within the confines of the castle's darkest recesses. With each visitation, Alex's nights became a tableau of haunting encounters, each spirit a messenger from the past, their appearances weaving a complex narrative of tragedy, betrayal, and unquiet death. The castle, with its long and bloody history, was a magnet for restless spirits, its walls a prison for those unable to find peace. These sleepless nights, filled with the whispers and cries of the dead, fueled Alex's obsession with understanding the motives behind the hauntings. It was as if the castle itself was communicating through these apparitions, each one a key to unlocking the mysteries that lay buried within its stone heart. But, as the days blurred into nights, and the line between the living and the dead grew ever more tenuous. Alex began to question the nature of his quest. Was he merely an observer, a chronicler of the castle's haunted past? Or had he become a part of its story, a living thread woven into the tapestry of its ghostly legacy? The answers remained elusive, the spirit's motives wrapped in the enigma of their existence. But one thing was clear: Chillingham Castle was a place of unquiet souls, and Alex's journey into its haunted depths was far from over. The castle held more secrets, more stories that yearned to be told, and Alex knew that he could not turn back until each one had been brought to light. The night's shadows held the key, and he would pursue them, wherever they might lead, into the heart of the darkness and beyond. Amidst the labyrinthine corridors and secret passageways of Chillingham Castle, a place steeped in shadows and whispers of the past, Alex stumbled upon a discovery that would forever alter the course of his journey. Guided by an inexplicable pull, a feeling as if the castle itself was leading him, Alex found himself before a nondescript wall that hinted at secrets hidden just beyond its surface. It was here, in the silence of the castle's ancient heart, that he uncovered the entrance to a hidden room, long sealed away from the world. The door, if it could be called that, was cleverly concealed within the wall, its existence betrayed only by the faintest outline and an almost imperceptible draft that spoke of spaces beyond. With a mixture of trepidation and exhilaration, Alex pushed against the stone, and to his astonishment, it swung inward, revealing a chamber untouched by time. The room was small, its air stale and heavy with the scent of decay and forgotten years. The only light came from a narrow slit in the wall, a grudging allowance from the outside world that did little to pierce the gloom. But it was enough for Alex to see the room's contents, and what he saw chilled him to the bone. In the center of the room lay a small, decrepit skeleton, its bones arranged in a haphazard fashion, as if hastily hidden and then forgotten. The remnants of blue fabric, now faded and tattered, clung to the bones, the final, silent testament of the blue boy. Around the skeleton were scattered various artifacts: a wristed dagger, a broken locket containing a faded portrait, and scraps of parchment filled with desperate, scrawled pleas for help. The air in the room seemed to thicken, as if charged with the echoes of the past, and Alex felt a profound sadness wash over him, a sorrow so deep and pervasive that it seemed to seep into his very soul. The hidden chamber, with its grim contents, told a story of betrayal and murder, a dark chapter in a castle's history that had been concealed within its walls. The discovery of the Blue Boy's resting place confirmed the legends that had whispered through the corridors of Chillingham Castle for centuries. But more than that, it provided a tangible connection to the spirit that had haunted the castle, a boy whose life had been cut tragically short by the cruelty of those he trusted. As Alex stood in the dim light of the hidden room, surrounded by the remnants of a life lost, he realized that his journey into the castle's haunted past was not just about uncovering secrets. It was about giving voice to those who had been silenced, about bringing light to the darkest corners of history. But with this realization came a weight, a responsibility that bore down on him with the force of the stone walls that surrounded him. The hidden room and its contents were not just relics of the past. They were a reminder of the suffering that had permeated the castle's history, a suffering that lingered like a shadow in the memories of the living and the unrest of the dead. As Alex carefully documented his findings, preserving the legacy of the Blue Boy for those who would come after, he knew that his work was far from over. The castle held more secrets, more stories waiting to be discovered, and with each step deeper into its mysteries, Alex found himself more entangled in its web of history, a part of the castle's ongoing story of life, death, and the restless spirits that dwelled within its walls. As the nights unfolded under the watchful gaze of Chillingham Castle, Alex found himself drawn deeper into the spectral world that existed parallel to his own. The discovery of the hidden chamber and the tragic remains of the Blue Boy had opened a gateway, a bridge between the living and the dead, that allowed the castle's spirits to communicate their stories with unprecedented clarity. Among these ethereal visitations, it was the Blue Boy whose presence became a constant, his spectral appearances growing more vivid, as if empowered by Alex's discovery and his quest for the truth. One evening, as the castle basked in the glow of a full moon, its silver light casting long shadows across the stone floors, Alex experienced a visitation unlike any before. The Blue Boy appeared at the stroke of midnight, his blue-tinged light more luminous, his form more defined. And this time, he was not alone. Beside him, a shadowy figure materialized, his visage stern and cold, an aura of treachery emanating from his very being. Through the silent communication of the spectral world, a story unfolded before Alex, a tale of greed, betrayal, and a family torn asunder. The Blue Boy was revealed to be a young heir, the rightful lord of Chillingham Castle, whose existence threatened the ambitions of his uncle, a man consumed by a lust for power. In a plot as dark as the castle's deepest dungeons, the uncle had the boy hidden away within the walls of the castle, a living tomb from which there was no escape. The shadowy figure beside the boy, his treacherous uncle, stood in silent accusation, a ghostly embodiment of the malice that have led to such a cruel fate. Night after night, the story unraveled, with spectral scenes playing out before Alex's eyes. He saw the young boy's life within the castle, once filled with the innocence of youth, gradually succumb to the darkness of his confinement. The desperation, the isolation, and the eventual acceptance of his fate were etched into the boy's spectral countenance, a silent testimony to the cruelty he had endured. But it was not just the tale of the boar and his uncle that the spirits conveyed. Through these visions, Alex began to understand the interconnectedness of the castle's hauntings, each spirit bound to the castle not just by their own tragedies, but by the web of betrayal and suffering that had defined the castle's history. The blue boy was but one thread in this tapestry, his story a pivotal moment that echoed through the ages, a reminder of the darkness that lurked within the hearts of men. As the true story of the blue boy came to light, Alex felt a profound sense of sorrow, not just for the young heir and his untimely fate, but for all the souls who had been caught in the castle's cycle of betrayal and vengeance. The castle, with its grandeur and beauty, masked a legacy of pain, a fortress where the walls themselves bore witness to the depths of human cruelty. Yet, in the revelation of these truths, there was also a glimmer of hope. For in telling their stories, the spirits sought not just to remember, but to find peace, to break the chains that bound them to the castle, and to the tragedies of their pasts. And in Alex, they had found a conduit, a living soul willing to listen, to understand, and to help carry their stories into the light. As the dawn broke, casting the first rays of sunlight into the castle, the blue boy and his spectral companions faded from view, their stories entrusted to Alex. It was a burden he accepted with a sense of solemn duty, for he knew that in giving voice to the silenced, he could help forge a path to redemption, not just for the spirits of Chillingham Castle, but for the living who walked its halls, forever intertwined with the echoes of the past. In the shadowed heart of Chillingham Castle, where history bleeds into the present, and the veil between worlds grows thin, Alex found himself at a crossroads of understanding and mystery. The revelations of the blue boy, and the tapestry of other hauntings that enveloped the castle, had illuminated the profound truth of its spectral inhabitants. They were bound to this place, not by mere chance or malevolent desire, but by the deep, unresolved traumas of their pasts. The castle, with its imposing stone walls and ancient corridors, had become a prison not of the body, but of the soul. Each spirit that wandered its halls, from the mournful lady in white to the tormented torturer, was tethered by chains fused from betrayal, loss, and unrequited desires. These were not simply ghosts in the traditional sense, aimlessly haunting the living. They were remnants of shattered lives, echoes of the pain and suffering that had permeated the castle's history. As Alex delved deeper into the heart of the hauntings, he discovered that the castle itself seemed to play a role in this spectral binding. It was as if the very stones of Chillingham Castle had absorbed the emotional energies of its tragic inhabitants, becoming a beacon that held their spirits in a perpetual state of unrest. The castle did not just contain ghosts. It was an active participant in their entrapment, a keeper of stories that had never found their ending. The Blue Boy, in particular, epitomized this tragic state of existence. His untimely death, a dark deed born of greed and jealousy, had left a scar on the fabric of the castle's history, a wound that had never healed. He roamed the corridors not out of a desire to frighten or harm, but as a manifestation of unresolved grief and the inherent need for recognition, for his story to be acknowledged and his spirit to be released from the anguish that bound him. It was this understanding that led Alex to the realization that the hauntings of Chillingham Castle were cries for help, silent pleas from those who had been wronged, their lives cut short before their stories could reach their natural conclusion. These spirits, including the Blue Boy, were not trapped by the castle by accident. They were held by the unbreakable chains of unfinished business. Their existence is a testament to the human need for closure and justice. This revelation shed new light on the nature of the hauntings. The spirits were not malevolent entities seeking to instill fear, but rather, they were lost souls searching for someone to listen, to understand, and perhaps to aid in resolving the tragedies that had defined their existence. They sought to communicate, to bridge the gap between the past and the present, in the hope that their stories could find the resolution that life had denied them. Alex's role, then, became clearer with each passing night. He was not merely a witness to the castle's haunted legacy. He was a mediator, a bridge between the living and the dead, with the potential to offer the spirits the peace they so desperately sought. The weight of this responsibility was not lost on him, for he knew that in helping to untangle the web of sorrow that enveloped the castle, he might also find a way to free its spectral inhabitants from their eternal bondage. The hauntings of Chillingham Castle, with their roots entwined in the deepest human emotions, love, betrayal, grief, were a powerful reminder of the impact that our actions have on the world, both seen and unseen. And as Alex prepared to take the next steps in his journey, he did so with a sense of purpose, knowing that the key to unlocking the mystery of the hauntings lay not in fear, but in empathy, understanding, and the desire to right the wrongs of the past. As the moon climbed high into the starless sky, casting Chillingham Castle into a tableau of silver and shadow, Alex prepared to embark on the most perilous and profound endeavor of his journey. armed with the knowledge he had gleaned from the countless nights of spectral visitations and the whispered secrets of the past. He was ready to confront the spirits that roamed the castle's ancient halls. This was to be a night of reckoning, a ritual born of hope and the deep desire to offer peace to those bound in unrest. In the heart of the castle, where the veil between the worlds felt thinnest, Alex set his stage. He arranged the artifacts he had found: a tattered piece of blue fabric, a wristed dagger, a locket containing a faded portrait, and the scraps of parchment filled with desperate pleas, into a circle, each object a symbol of the tragedies that had unfolded within these walls. Lighting candles to mark the cardinal points, he began the ritual, his voice steady but filled with emotion, as he called out to the spirits. "Souls of Chillingham Castle," he began, "hear my call. I stand before you, not as an intruder, but as a bearer of peace, a bridge between the light and the shadow. I acknowledge your pain, your loss, and the injustices that have bound you to this place. Tonight, I offer you a path to peace, a chance to step into the light and find the rest that has eluded you for so long." As Alex spoke, the air within the castle began to stir, a palpable sense of anticipation that felt almost electric. Shadows danced at the edge of vision, and the temperature dropped, the candles flickering as if caught in an unseen breeze. Then, one by one, the spirits appeared, their forms coalescing from the darkness into the circle of light. The blue boy was among them, his spectral eyes meeting Alex's with an expression that spoke of hope and gratitude. Alex continued, his words a beacon in the darkness. "Your stories have been heard, your sufferings acknowledged. Let these offerings symbolize your release from the bonds that hold you here. May they serve as a key to unlock the chains of the past, freeing you to move on to a place of peace and light." With that, Alex extinguished a candle, and then another, each action accompanied by a soft, whispered chant, a litany of release and forgiveness. As the final candle was sniffed out, a profound silence enveloped the room, a stillness so complete that it felt as if the castle itself was holding its breath. Then, slowly, the atmosphere began to shift. The air grew warmer, the oppressive weight that had lingered over the castle lifting as if carried away on the wind. The spirits, their forms glowing with a soft, inner light, nodded to Alex, a silent farewell, before fading from view, their departure marked by a sense of peace that suffused the room. In the aftermath of the ritual, the castle felt transformed. The malevolence that had once permeated its stones was gone, replaced by a tranquil serenity. The hauntings, while not entirely ceased, had become less frequent and fraught with sorrow. The spirits that remained seemed calm, their presence less a cry for vengeance than a testament to the castle's storied past. Alex, standing alone in the circle of extinguished candles, felt a profound sense of relief and accomplishment. He had set out to uncover the mysteries of Chillingham Castle, but in doing so, he had embarked on a journey that had bridged the divide between life and death, offering solace to those who had been lost in the shadows. As the dawn broke, casting the first light of day into the castle. It was clear that a new chapter had begun, both for Alex and for Chillingham. The ritual had marked a turning point, a moment of healing in the long, tumultuous history of the castle. And while the ghosts of the past would always be a part of Chillingham, their presence now spoke more of peace than of unrest, a lasting legacy of the night when the boundaries between worlds were crossed in the name of compassion and understanding. In the days that followed the ritual, a palpable sense of calm settled over Chillingham Castle, as if the ancient stones themselves breathed a sigh of relief. The oppressive atmosphere that had once cloaked the corridors in shadows seemed to lift, replaced by a serene tranquility that spoke of resolutions long sought and finally found. The spirits that once roamed the halls with restless urgency now appeared less frequently, their manifestations more gentle, as if in acknowledgment of the peace that had been brokered in their names. Alex, having been the architect of this profound change, found himself at a crossroads. The journey he had embarked upon, driven by a desire to uncover the secrets of the castle's haunted past, had evolved into something far greater, a mission of reconciliation between the living and the dead. The experiences he had gathered, the stories he had unearthed, and the ritual that had marked the culmination of his quest, all bore witness to a truth far more complex and profound than he had ever anticipated. Recognizing the significance of his findings, Alex set about documenting his experiences in meticulous detail. He compiled the histories of the spirits he had encountered, the legacy of betrayal and tragedy that had bound them to the castle, and the ritual that had offered them a semblance of peace. His work, grounded in historical research that deeply imbued with the paranormal encounters that had guided his journey, offered a unique perspective on the castle's legacy. Upon publication, Alex's findings ignited a storm of interest. Chillingham Castle, already renowned as one of Britain's most haunted historic sites, found itself thrust into the limelight once more, its fame now bolstered by a narrative that intertwined spectral legend with a poignant tale of redemption. Visitors flocked to the castle, drawn by the allure of its ghostly inhabitants, and a promise of experiencing the serene atmosphere that now permeated its ancient walls. The castle's caretakers, once wary of the attention the hauntings attracted, found a new sense of pride in their stewardship of the site. Alex's work had not only validated the spectral legends that had been passed down through generations, but had also painted the castle as a place where the boundaries between the past and the present, the tangible and the ethereal, could be transcended in the pursuit of understanding and peace. As for Alex, the conclusion of his journey marked the beginning of a new chapter in his own life. no longer merely a historian of the paranormal. He had become a bridge between worlds, a role that he embraced with a sense of humility and purpose. The accolades and attention his work received were secondary to the knowledge that, in some small way, he had contributed to the healing of wounds that have lingered in the shadows for centuries. Chillingham Castle, with its storied past and spectral inhabitants, stood as a testament to the enduring nature of the human spirit, its walls a keeper of secrets that had at last found their voice. And as the castle entered this new period of calm, it did so with the understanding that the stories of those who had once walked its halls would never be forgotten, their legacies preserved in the annals of history and in the hearts of those who sought to bridge the gap between the seen and the unseen. In this new-found peace, the castle whispered its tales to the wind, a reminder that even in the darkest of histories, there is light to be found, and redemption to be sought. For Alex, and for Chillingham Castle, the journey was a reminder that the past, no matter how shadowed, could always be met with understanding, empathy, and the hope for peace. As the day of departure dawned, the halls of Chillingham Castle seemed to echo with a silent reverence, a solemn acknowledgment of the journey that had unfolded within its ancient walls. Alex, his bags packed and his notes compiled, took a final walk through the corridors, a farewell to the place that had become not just a subject of his research, but a pivotal chapter in his own story. It was in the early hours of the morning, as the first light of dawn cast a soft glow through the stained glass windows, that Alex experienced a visitation that would forever etch itself into his memory. As he passed through the grand hall, the air around him shimmered, and there, in the place where shadows met the light, the figure of the blue boy materialized. But this was not the spectral apparition Alex had come to know. The boy stood before him not as a ghost, shrouded in the eerie glow of the unseen, but as a presence of serene light, his expression one of profound peace and gratitude. His eyes, clear and luminous, met Alex's, and in that gaze, a silent communication passed between them, a thank you from the boy for the peace that had been granted, not just to him, but to all the spirits of Chillingham Castle. The blue boy raised his hand, and in a gesture that seemed to transcend the boundaries of time and existence, he reached out to Alex. Though they were separated by realms, in that moment, Alex felt a warmth envelop him, a sensation of comfort and reassurance that spoke of bonds forged in the crucible of understanding and compassion. Then, as gently as he had appeared, the blue boy faded, his form dissolving into the light of the new day, a final farewell from a soul no longer bound by the chains of unrest. In his place, the air seemed to sparkle, motes of light dancing in the space where he had stood, a visual echo of the peace that now reigned in the castle. Alex stood alone in the grand hall, the silence around him a profound testament to the journey that had taken place. The encounter with the blue boy, this last goodbye, was a confirmation that the ritual had achieved its purpose, that the spirits of Chillingham Castle had found the resolution they had sought for so long. As Alex turned to leave, he felt a sense of closure, a knowing that his time at the castle had come to an end, but with it, a new beginning for the spirits that had called it home. The hauntings that had once filled the castle with the whispers of the past had quieted, their stories told, their peace found. Leaving Chillingham Castle behind, Alex carried with him not just the knowledge and experiences he had gained, but a deep sense of connection to the unseen world that lingered just beyond the veil of reality. The castle, with its ancient stones and ghostly legends, had become a place of transformation, not just for the spirits that haunted it, but for Alex himself. The Blue Boy's final appearance was a gift, a sign that the work Alex had undertaken had mattered, that in seeking to understand the hauntings, he had facilitated a healing, a letting go, that allowed those trapped between worlds to move on. And as he stepped out into the dawn of a new day, Alex knew that his encounter with Chillingham Castle and its spectral inhabitants would forever shape his path, a reminder that even in the deepest shadows, there is light waiting to be found. As Alex's car pulled away from Chillingham Castle, the ancient fortress receded into the distance, its imposing silhouette a stark outline against the dawn sky. The journey he had embarked upon, initially fueled by academic curiosity and a fascination with the supernatural, had evolved into an odyssey of discovery, not just of the castle's haunted history, but of the deeper connections that bind the living to the spectral echoes of the past. Driving down the winding path that led away from the castle, Alex found himself enveloped in a reflective silence, the events of his stay replaying in his mind like the scenes from a deeply moving film. The castle, with its storied walls and shadowed corridors, had become more than a mere location for his research. It had been a gateway to understanding the intricate tapestry of human experience, where history and the supernatural intertwined in a dance as old as time itself. The encounters with the spirits of Chillingham Castle, particularly the poignant farewell with the Blue Boy, had impressed upon Alex a profound truth, that the hauntings were not merely manifestations of unresolved pasts, but expressions of the deeply rooted human desire to be remembered, to have our stories told and acknowledged. In bridging the gap between the living and the dead, Alex had become a conduit for these stories, allowing the spirits a voice through which their tales of sorrow, love, betrayal, and redemption could finally be heard. As the landscape unfurled before him, Alex contemplated the nature of history and the supernatural, realizing that they were not separate realms, but intertwined strands of the same narrative. History was not just a record of the past, but a living, breathing entity, shaped by the stories of those who had come before. The supernatural, in turn, was a manifestation of the parts of this narrative that refused to be forgotten, a reminder that the past, with all its shadows and light, still had the power to touch the present. Chillingham Castle, with its breathtaking beauty and haunting legacy, stood as a testament to this intertwining of worlds. It was a place where the veil between the past and the present was thin, where the stories of those long gone could still be felt in the chill of a shadowed hallway, or the whisper of the wind through the battlements. The castle remained, as it had for centuries, a beautiful but haunting reminder of its ghostly inhabitants, a monument to the complexity of the human spirit and the enduring power of memory. In departing Chillingham Castle, Alex carried with him not just the memories of his encounters, but a deeper understanding of the bonds that connect us to our past. He had come seeking ghosts, but in their finding, he had discovered much more, a sense of continuity and connection that transcended the barriers of time and existence. As the castle faded from view, Alex knew that this journey would stay with him, a pivotal chapter in his own story. Chillingham Castle, with its legends and spirits, had changed him, challenging him to look beyond the surface of history and the supernatural, to see the human stories that lay beneath. The road ahead was open, leading Alex into the future, but the lessons of Chillingham Castle would remain, a guiding light in the exploration of the unseen worlds that surround us. For in seeking to understand the hauntings of the castle, Alex had uncovered a deeper truth, that the past is never truly gone, but lives on in the stories we tell, the memories we keep, and the spirits that linger in the places we are drawn to explore. And so, dear listeners, our journey through the haunted halls of Chillingham Castle comes to a close. Through the eyes of Alex, we've traversed the thin veil between the past and the present, between the realm of the living and the echoes of those long past. We've encountered spirits bound by tragedy, witnessed their plea for peace, and observed the profound impact of acknowledging and respecting the narratives that history often whispers. Alex's departure from Chillingham Castle marks not an end, but a continuation, a narrative thread that weaves itself into the fabric of our understanding of the supernatural and our quest to connect with the stories that shape our world. The castle remains a stoic guardian of history, its beauty forever marred and magnified by the tales of its ghostly inhabitants. As we conclude this episode, let us carry forward the lessons learned within these ancient walls, that the past, with all its shadows and specters, is an integral part of our collective story. The hauntings of Chillingham Castle and places like it serve as reminders that history is alive, pulsating with the lives of those who came before us, their stories begging to be told, remembered, and respected. Thank you for joining us on this spectral journey. May the tales of Chillingham Castle inspire you to explore the depths of history, to seek out the stories etched in the stones of the past, and to listen for the whispers of those who walk the shadowy threshold between worlds. Until we meet again, keep the past alive and may your explorations into the realm of the supernatural be guided by curiosity, empathy, and a desire to understand the unseen narratives that shape our existence. Farewell, dear listeners, until our paths cross once more in the pursuit of history's hidden tales and the mysteries that linger just beyond the veil.